This is Gene Krebs.
Hi there. Oh. Whoop. Whoosh.
And we're high on Ohio.
We're going around this great state. We're talking to people who know how things work and who've actually, in this case, made things work better. It's my great pleasure to be with Dr. Ned Hill of Cleveland State University, where you are the dean of the school here at the Maxine.
Maxine, Goodman, Levin College of Urban Affairs.
Okay.
By the way, the highest rated academic program in the state of Ohio.
Really? I did not know that.
We're ranked #2 in the country in city management and urban public policy.
Oh, very, very good. What Ned is also famous for out there for Bobby and Betty Buckeye is under former Governor Bob Taft, as I understand the story, and you can retell it again, you know what's coming, is that basically you sat down and with a conversation with then Governor Taft, you mapped out the commercial activity tax. And
I wish it was that easy.
I know, because this is something that you're also been thinking. But in any case, so first of all, what exactly do you do here at Cleveland State?
Well, I've got 2 jobs.
Okay.
The day job is I'm just a pure academic bureaucrat managing my little college.
Okay,
Right,
yes,
so-
I have a...
Bridges in Brooklyn.
Yes.
Actually, it's a privilege. I'm the dean of the College of Urban Affairs. We have 25 faculty members. We have a very active research shop. We do about $3 million worth of public policy research here a year, most of which is directly applies to Northeast Ohio and the state of Ohio. Even though we've done the economic development strategy for 2 governors of Pennsylvania. We've done the manufacturing strategy for Wisconsin. We did the manufacturing strategy for Wisconsin, but we were fired by the governor because we said, you really aren't that good in biotech, and he got, I think the term is honked off. So
You told him something he did not want to hear.
Yeah, but the good thing was we cashed a check first. So it was okay.
Okay.
But we do serious public policy work here. I mean, right now we're spending a lot of time looking at low-income, highly challenged entering suburbs.
So that's...
because we've got
right.
East Cleveland, but we also have places like Trotwood and Norwood.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What can you tell Bobby and Betty Buckeye out there about this?
Well, Ohio is one of the most fascinating states in the United States.
Is it really a state?
No,
it's not.
No, there are at least 3 Ohios.
Okay.
The cheap joke, which I use all the time, I like cheap jokes, is there's the state of Ohio and the state of Ohio.
Okay.
And the state of Ohio is anything south of I-80, the turnpike.
Yeah.
But Appalachia is a very different state as well. It reflects, one, where the initial migrants came from, the political systems they took with us. So the southern part of the state, the reason why we have Washington County was George Washington owned the sucker.
Okay.
And so we essentially got a county-based form of government coming out of Virginia in the south, and that really is Columbus and South.
Okay.
You're sitting in the Western Reserve, and that was the Western Reserve of Connecticut. Some of the towns, such as Medina and Hudson, I can go through and I can see the cities I grew up in or the towns I grew up in Connecticut out here. And so they took a very strong home rule municipal form of government and kind of overlaid it, and that is pretty much, from Stark County north.
Okay.
And also...
And I will tell you, mayors on the northern tier of the state are paid $80,000 a year.
Right.
On the southern tier of the state, being a mayor is like an honorary position. It's like being president of the Rotary Club.
Right. And
duties and obligations and not a whole lot of extra money.
Exactly. And as you further south you go, the more city managers you find. Further north you go, you won't find city managers.
You find strong mayors.
Strong mayors. And the other thing, which, from the time when I first met you down in the legislature, you'll find that county commissioners in the center, central, and southern part of the state move up to the State House.
Yes.
And from the northern part of the state, they move up from the State House to the county commission.
All right, radically different.
It's the attitude is different, and pattern of industrialization is different. Ethnicities are different, so it makes it a very interesting state. And you think about Appalachia, natural resource dependent, very rural,
Extractive natural resources.
extractive, very rural, closely aligned to West Virginia, which was on the Union side of the Civil War, but again has a set of very strong rural values, but also very heavily unionized.
Yeah.
Very different from...
And Copperhead Democrats.
I would Yeah, actually, yeah, that would work. They still exist.
Yes. Ted Strickland was a Copperhead deed. To me.
Absolutely. But very different from the rural voter and rural ethics in the western part of the state.
Yes.
So it makes traveling the state, speaking to groups, doing research around the state.
You need a passport.
Well, you need a passport, but it's endlessly fascinating. And
Yeah.
you fall in love with the state every time you do it.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I would do this job for free, but I'm a married man.
And eating lunch is good. Being able to pay for it's better.
Oh, I tell you, you can drop me into any community anywhere in Ohio and tell you where to go eat. Let me ask you this question. You brought up a little bit about the low income problem. All right. What are we seeing here in Ohio vis-a-vis the problem of we're increasingly getting the presidential candidate with the great hair who got in trouble then for fathering the child out of wedlock, John Edwards. Okay, God, it's amazing how the memory works here. John Edwards did get one thing right several years ago. He said there are two Americas, and we are rapidly bifurcating. And it's, and even the rich aren't what they used to be, okay? What are you finding out about the income disparity in Ohio, and especially the ability of the blue and pink collar to move up to the bourgeois middle class? How are you finding that? How's that working or not working?
Move up to the bourgeois?
Bourgeois or middle class.
Okay. It's...
I'm one of these right people. I think bourgeois is fine.
Fine. I was going for boudoir, but that may be a different thing, different fee. It's tougher. So
Why?
The social contract of the 50s and 60s is gone because the economy's changed. The old Ohio Jim Rhodes recipe was based on big industry and big manufacturing.
Okay.
And we're still a world-class manufacturing power, it's just manufacturing's changed. The old recipe was very big company, is either a monopolist or a duopolist, but they've got market power, and didn't have a lot of competitors.
Because we had just got done bombing the heck out of Europe and Japan, and we had no major competitors here for 30 years.
That's exactly right. And also the brand names were important, and we were the global brand names.
Okay.
And we also, countervailing with big industry, we had big labor.
Okay.
And big industry and big labor in the state agreed phenomenally on import protection, screwing the hell out of the customer,
Okay.
and then...
Oh, you mean like GM just did on
Well, we'll go there. But then, building the trough as big as you can get it and throw as much slop in there as you can, and then they agreed they're going to fight like two pigs over who got the most stuff in the trough. So management, labor, and stockholders loved that model.
Okay.
Well, then eventually the consumer got tired of it. Remember the famous cars that we had as kids or young adults?
Right.
I had an AMC Gremlin.
Oh, gosh.
Right, and the only reason why that car had a rear window defroster was keep your hands warm while you push the sucker. My wife had it worse. She had a Dodge Duster, the only car made out of compressed rust. So if the paint went, geez, there went the quarter panel.
I had a 1974 GM pickup truck, and every time it rained, which occurs in Ohio on a regular basis, it refused to start.
Right. And there was also, remember, Henry Ford was on the cover of Time magazine in the 70s, and, when this little company called Honda was kicking around, and he had that snide comment, it was the title on Time said, "Many cars, many profits." Well, so the consumer got tired of it.
Yeah.
And competitors showed up. And the one thing about markets is if there's high margins, markets will go to work hard and diligently destroy those margins.
Really?
It happens.
What a surprise.
So think about the disruptors. You have, people talk about foreign cars, domestic cars. We don't know that, right? We know there's the Detroit 3 or Detroit 2.5. And then there is, there's the Ohio 1, Honda, and Toyota. And right now, Honda has average domestic content of their cars is higher than the Detroit 3. But I'm getting confused. What I really want to say is you ended up with a bunch of foreign nameplates, then foreign cars at better price points, better quality, more reliability, and they actually got what the customer wanted.
Yeah.
And the customer said, well, I'm loyal to American cars, but I'm not so loyal to be stupid. Then you had another set of disruptors came on. Think about what Walmart's done. Now, there's this huge controversy about Walmart and what they pay their employees and their employees getting food stamps. But there's a friend of mine who's a school principal, not in Ohio, he's in Island in Maine. And Walmart came to Maine, and I asked this guy named Mike Wood. I asked Mike, I said, Mike, what are your thoughts about Walmart? And this is, nuts and granola looking guy with the beard and the white hair. And
Birkenstocks.
Yeah, he's all there. And Mike said, I love Walmart. And I was shocked.
Okay.
Right? I said, tell me why. He says, it's the first year every kid in my school showed up in September with new clothes. So Walmart made it possible, because of their aggressive pricing, to lower price stuff so that kids can have clothes. Now, it meant that the small Main Street merchant in rural Maine got put out of business because Walmart could sell the stuff cheaper than the merchant could buy it for.
Now, I will also tell you, I once did a conference for a left-leaning organization had me come in and do a conference for them once. And I told them that your commercial activity tax that you create here for Ohio is the most anti-Walmart taxation structure I'm aware of.
Yep.
And don't you want to sing out some praises now for Ohio and the Republicans who passed it? And they all sat on their hands because it was more about the ideology than it was the policy.
Well, actually, and this is the good thing about Ohio, even today with the highly polarized legislature, you can still get practical and pragmatic stuff done.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we still care about governing.
Well, we still care, as I say sometimes, about we don't care what the cat looks like as long as the thing catches mice.
Right.
So let's go back to low income.
All right, well, I want to take you a small diversion to correct the record on the cat tax.
Okay.
Actually, we started work here in 2000
Okay.
when everyone said manufacturing is dead, and came out with this little small book about Ohio's competitive advantage manufacturing.
I remember the book quite well.
And Eric Birkland at the Ohio Manufacturers Association, no big surprise, loved the book. And we had just one chart in that book, which showed that manufacturers paid 5 times the tax load of any other sector in the state, and it was our base. Made sense when manufacturing, couldn't go anywhere else, and there was no competition, and so we essentially offloaded the household taxpayer and the income taxpayer and loaded it onto the manufacturing sector. That changed. So Eric took that piece of work and I did a lot of talking around the state, but Eric with his members worked, and we remember being laughed at during the Voinovich administration, talking about the future of manufacturing, not by the senator, governor, or mayor, whose office is just 10 feet from this room, but by everyone else in the State House, because everyone knew manufacturing was dead. And we kept on pumping at it and working at it. And then I remember the 2001, 2002 recession came, and Taft was governor. And I was so depressed, because the only way you can really change laws fundamentally to deal with the economy is when there's a great crisis. And the 2001 recession was a terrible crisis here. And I didn't think we were going to do anything to change the state. Well, Governor Taft heard the message. He had his chief aide for business industry was Jim Samuel. And Jim heard the message and was acted as a connecting point between the governor and OMA, a little bit of myself. And that's when the governor did 2 things at the end of his term that will forever shape the state. He created and passed the Clean Ohio Fund, hugely important, and the cat tax. Now, what we did was we gave the principles for what the cat tax should look like, and then his head of taxation did the specifics because he knew the code.
Tom Zano.
Yeah, it was Tom Zano did it. And then you also had, there was representative from Medina County, Chuck.
Oh.
Brain fart. No, not Chuck.
Calvert.
Chuck Calvert took the bill and brought it forward.
He was actually a former rocket scientist with NASA, so proving it does take some brains.
It does take some brain power. And then Sally Conway-Kilbane,
a PhD economist.
PhD economist, just took it, and she ran the committee hearings. And who was the backbench young kid sitting there paying attention to all this on the committee but Mary Taylor?
Ah, okay. Now Lieutenant Governor.
Now Lieutenant Governor, but it wasn't all just Republicans. This was a fascinating time because the Democrats on the committee were just incredibly helpful.
Okay.
And a lot of them were from northern part of the state. But they understood the future of manufacturing lied in capital and making it possible to invest in capital. And that's what the cat tax really did.
Interesting. Well, now going back to the low income, how does this affect Bobby, Betty, Buckeye living in East Cleveland, living in Columbiana County,
Could be Maslin.
Maslin, Scioto County, Washington County. How's all this impact them now? What's this new environment looking like, and how do we get them to move up the food chain?
All right, so let's think about the fact that the blue-collar job is not the same blue-collar job anymore.
We were in a blue-collar utopia.
We were blue-collar utopia, and the last remnants of that blue-collar world is an attitude towards education, which is good enough education. It's slowly changing, but we've also in some ways gone too far. So let me take it step by step and unpack it a little bit.
Okay.
The solution is everyone should go get a BA, which is solid nonsense, even though I'm a dean in a university and that's my product.
Right.
Massachusetts has, their adult population, 25 and above, is the highest percentage of BAs of any state in the country, and that's at 38%. So it still means there's, 60 some odd, 70%. So what, they're gonna sit there sucking their thumbs?
And Massachusetts is doing quite well from an economic standpoint.
Well, the eastern part of the state is, western part of the state, not quite so much.
Okay.
All right, so, but we do know that there is a very high correlation between the percent of the population with high levels of educational attainment and increases in per capita income.
Okay.
All right, so income, which directly translates to wages. So this blue-collar attitude of high school's good enough, which means that we're below the national average in dropouts, above the national average of high school graduates, below the national average of BAs, has to be attacked.
Okay.
But we have to do it in a smart way, which just don't make it BA uber alles over everything. It really has to, we have to do a couple things. We have to recognize that we are and will stay a manufacturing state. We're going to grow other things around it, but that manufacturing core is good jobs, good income, unbelievably sophisticated products. But the person that's there is no longer an unskilled, semi-skilled, hard-working, strong back guy.
Joe Lunchbucket's
Right.
dead.
Right, but it is going to be someone with maybe a community college degree or maybe a certification from Tooling U, but is someone who is able to connect their heads with their hands to make real life products.
Okay.
And so that means that we need many more engineering technologists, probably less, maybe not as many engineers. At a time when all of our universities, public universities, have cut their engineering technology programs. Why? It doesn't give us the grant money, which is what we're after. Well, no, it educates students with things that get them jobs, and that is the plant manager and the plant leader of the future in a highly automated plant. The Germans call this field mechatronics, mechanical engineering and electronics, bringing it together. We would call it industrial engineering, but it really means it's a technologist who can tie computers, machine tools, and understand the production process and understands business. We have to make that transition. We're fighting that fight here at Cleveland State to make that happen.
How's Ohio doing on this?
Oh, pretty lousy.
Okay.
But, you don't win. You got to start the battle before you win.
All right, let me ask you this question. This looks like an ordinary ink pen. It's not. It's actually
What's your death ray?
No, it's my magic wand. Okay, here, here we go. I'll put the
Yeah.
magic light on now. All right. So the question for you is, Dr. Ned Hill, or Edward Hill as you're formally known, you get to do one thing. You get to have the General Assembly. I will guarantee you the General Assembly will pass whatever it is you suggest. I also guarantee you the governor will sign it. And most importantly, I guarantee you a majority of the Supreme Court. Not unanimous, I'm not a wonder worker, okay? But you get a majority of the Supreme Court supporting it. What would you have them do?
We already did it.
What was this, the cat?
No, it wasn't the cat. When John Husted was Speaker of the House,
Okay.
John wanted to put forward debt forgiveness for kids with BAs who came to work in Ohio. And we knew something about that.
Okay.
And we said, well, it's taking place in Pennsylvania, and what it is just a windfall for people who are going to be there anyway. It doesn't
Right.
really attract new people.
Right.
So we said instead what we really should become is the experiential learning state. We should be the co-op state. And so we wrote for John at that point, which was in the Strickland administration, the concept of co-op education as a major form of tuition assistance for technical schools, for community colleges and universities. And John was very, very good. He said, well, get together with Eric again at the Ohio Manufacturers, but I'm going to term limit out as speaker, and this becomes my bill. When I stop being speaker, it's dead. John was just very smart at this stuff, and he said, so build the coalition. So we started with the same folks who did the cat tax, but then we reached out to the Strickland administration, and Lee Fisher was lieutenant governor, and Lee got this instantly. He said this is an economic development tool that makes difference. He was head of the Department of Development at the time, and he took it to the governor, and the governor got it instantly because he was very concerned about kids not having work experience in the state.
And if you look at Cincinnati, the Cincinnati region has a very high per capita college graduates in the region. And I've always assumed it's partly due to University of Cincinnati has a very aggressive work-study program.
Well, actually more. They've got arguably the nation's oldest or second oldest co-op program. Northeastern and Boston and Cincinnati fight about it.
Yeah.
But it's a magical tool, and Cincy Tech has really also taken it over.
And it makes that whole region then sticky.
Yep.
To these out-of-state, after they get an internship, co-op, work-study program at some place in that region, they find out where the local Kroger's is, they find out real human beings live there, they start to understand, and for the companies, it becomes like an early job. It's a 3-month long job interview process for them.
Well, the important thing is it becomes sticky for the firms as well, because firms are going to stay where the talent is.
Yeah.
That's the future. So, unfortunately, the Strickland administration hit the very bad 2007 recession.
Yeah.
And by the way, we also wrote it for Eric Fingerhut's platform for OBOR.
Okay.
So OBOR accepted. So this is
Ohio Board of Regents for Bobby and Betty Buckeye who are watching this.
Right. So Eric had it in his strategic plan for the Board of Regents. I wrote it.
Okay.
The Lee Fisher had it as part of the strategy for Department of Development.
Okay.
The governor had it in the state of the state.
Right.
But there was no funding mechanism.
Okay.
So it disappeared. Well, then what happened? It kind of sat there. So we invented this in the late Taft administration, went into the early Strickland. It was in Strickland's transition documents, as a matter of fact. We put it there. And for 4 years, there's no funding source.
Okay.
So along comes Governor Kasich and casino gambling. And Governor Kasich understood this instantly. And we have $13 million a year going into co-op scholarships in the state. So
Is that enough?
no.
How much do we need?
Well, it's somewhere in the $50 to $60 million range.
Okay.
It's huge. But what we're saying is fundamentally change the nature of education so it's experiential education.
Right.
And leverage private sector dollars along with it.
When you've talked to the General Assembly and to the governor, so this is the one thing you want. You need an extra $45 million is what you need. You need triple or quadruple the amount of funding for this thing. All right, so the question is, so if you need an extra $45 million, why haven't you got it? Because this, I remember, and I saw the study also, you cooperated with Rick Batico on this? Okay. See, I actually read your stuff. Okay, isn't that very frightening?
No, you're a sick puppy.
Yeah, I am. I don't have I need to watch more brainless TV. Well, that's what that proves.
Well, you know, Big Bang Theory, I think it's the TV show about my people.
Okay, yes, I know. There's a whole lot of past. We won't go down on that one. All right. That is a profoundly, and it makes the regions twice as sticky, if I remember the data correctly, as those regions that do not have it.
And it does a couple other things, particularly at the technical and community college level. You understand, for low-income kids, one of the reasons why they aren't successful is they need money. And the other thing we found out's happened in the state is a lot of our kids don't have any work experience going through secondary school. Remember, in inner city Ohio, there isn't the mom and pop retail stores. There isn't a place to get that work experience and be supervised by an adult that's not your parent. If you go to the main streets and the old courthouse squares across the state, what have we lost? All those retail jobs are there. The Occupational Safety Health Administration did, protecting workers, which is a good thing, but they've also made it almost impossible for a kid that's 18 or younger to work in a manufacturing plant or in a warehouse, or people are interpreting the rules in such a way and the liability insurance policies are keeping out. We've got to look at our occupational safety and health regulations to make certain that we aren't protecting people from machinery that doesn't even exist anymore.
Okay.
Because work experience, the soft skills you need to succeed at work, you don't teach those in the classroom.
All right, well, I want to get to income inequality a little bit then.
Okay.
All right. one time you and I were sitting at a table a few years back, and I just looked at you and I said, is it true that 90% of Ohio's income tax receipts come from our top 10%? And you said, probably closer to 93% from the top 7% off the top of my head.
All right, I can't remember the statistics, but this sounds about, I mean, we've got a wage tax and an income tax. And income tax, this is where I'll part grounds to the governor a bit. I understand why the governor wants the rate lower because, he's tired of seeing people move to Florida to avoid the tax altogether.
Right.
But people do stay in California.
Yeah. Well, actually, remember, Alaska has no income, sales, and has never had a death tax. And you don't find it full of widows from Shaker Heights moving out there to Alaska to spend their golden years. It just doesn't happen.
Right. So part of but people do stay for talent.
Yeah.
And the income tax is the progressive taxation still makes very good economic sense. You just can't make it so it's confiscatory. That's that practical middle. And we do think you need some more consumption taxes in the state as a way of balancing it out. So
Goes back to your argument on the cat.
exactly. But let's think about the income inequality issue that's happened. So the traditional way of undereducated people to be able to earn a good income was to go work in a plant, go to some environment where someone was arguably being overpaid for their work. Now, what do we have? Well, you had China came on the scene, and the world global supply of unskilled labor doubled overnight.
Okay.
And the trade barriers, and more importantly, the retailing barriers, thanks to the Walmarts of this world and Target, have really collapsed margins and put pressure on those that produce the goods as well. And we also have seen, because of the growth of the digitization of the factory, flexible electronics, productivity levels are through the roof. So that means the whole notion, what we ended up with now is we've had a collapse in demand for semi-skilled and unskilled labor, and we actually have a larger supply than ever before. So if you have an increase in supply, decrease in demand, what happens to the wage?
Yeah.
Goes down. And if you very aggressively try to increase the minimum wage, what's going to happen?
You're going to drive you're going to choose winners and losers, and the losers are going to be some 15-year-old kid who's looking for job experience.
Right. And the person who currently has a low-paid job will probably do a little bit better.
Yeah.
But there is a point, we're seeing it already in the warehouse industry, where if the minimum wage goes up to the $13 an hour level, robots are going to replace an awful lot of the people who do the picking. You have there are lights-out warehouses at work right now.
Wow. Okay.
Because they do it through RFID, radio frequency, radio. I don't know what the hell the frequency doohickey thing is.
Let me ask you this.
Aren't we experts?
Yeah. Let me ask you this as an economist then. Ever since January, when this issue started to come up a whole lot about income inequality, I increased my tipping anywhere from 1/3 to 50%.
You're a good human being, Gene.
And I'm figuring, look, I don't eat that fancy at places, and normally, I give a tip for $8, so now it's going to 12. Yeah, 12.
Okay.
Okay. If everybody did this,
10%. Let's see. So that's $100.
Yeah.
So you're doing about $85 meals.
Between my wife and myself, we go out to eat a couple.
All right, that's okay. You said by yourself.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'd never eat by myself. It's always with the significant. Okay. She must be obeyed in all things. But my point is that if everybody started to do that, is it a matter of, as Americans, we become less giving on an individual basis?
No.
Is that why we need to do this?
No, this is all about markets.
It's all about markets.
It's all about markets. It's all about supply and demand of the workforce. So in a transitional, there are friends of mine that argue, and they look at the data and say, those metropolitan areas that have more equal distribution of income have faster growth rates. And some of the data indicates that, but they don't have a labor market model to explain it.
But San Francisco is the most unequal city in the world.
Right. This dissertation that I'm reading now by a kid at the University of Pennsylvania, I'm actually on his committee, and so this is really cool data, and it's very practical. Kid, what he found out was the places where wages are growing the fastest have the most unequal distribution of incomes. And essentially, it's 5 hothouses in the United States. Right. It's Washington, New York, San Francisco, L.A., and the Seattle region.
Okay.
Those which have the most equal distribution of income have actually seen wages drop a little bit, and those are mostly college towns. Columbus happens to be one. And the reason being is their largest product is educated human beings, and there's been price resistance. So professors can't get paid more to tip well like you do.
I just eat out less then.
That-
Well, maybe at the end of the day, it doesn't really increase the amount of money that they're getting at all then.
No,
maybe.
because you're
I have an X
you're
amount
probably
in my
wiping,
budget.
you're wiping out a couple meals a year. So let's really think about what we have to do then.
Yeah.
Couple things we have to do. One is, yes, there can be small increases in the minimum wage that won't be distorting, but as soon as you get above 40% of the median, that's a halfway point, then job growth starts slowing down, substitutions takes place, and you don't have to go anywhere further than France to actually see what a highly distorted minimum wage did to kids.
So what should the minimum wage be by statute in Ohio/America?
I don't really think it should be zero.
Okay.
But I also think there should be very large earned income tax credits and food stamps. What we should be doing is don't screw around with the wage someone gets, but adjust their income at the back end.
All right. So now I have a two-pronged question for you. There's recently, there are fads in public policy. You and I have never been guilty of embracing a fad ever in public policy.
Well, we just grease the skids and keep them moving.
But right now there's a current fad in public policy embraced by both the left and the right to do away with a whole lot of the social safety net bureaucracy and just give checks. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Fine dandy.
Okay.
That's the libertarian streak.
Yeah. Well, it's also the Occupy Wall Street movement is also coming around.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things for which you don't want to see public money, because if you're giving my money to someone else,
right,
I actually can be judgmental about it because it's still my money.
Ah.
So I don't want to see that just personally spent on booze, cigarettes, or e-cigs, whatever those little vaporizer things are. But on the whole, the reason why we have food stamps is essentially so that the farmers can get their cut.
Yeah.
And if you got to build a coalition.
Yeah.
But so let's think about what's going on with this growing inequality. There's some things that have to be done.
Okay.
The first thing is George Bush was right when he talked about what do you call it, the soft racism of low expectations.
Right.
I probably screwed up that.
No, you're all right.
But we do need higher expectations for performance in schools.
Okay.
Second thing you need to do is change the school day and the school environment, particularly for kids that come from unenriched households.
Okay. Like the old Model Cities program?
Well, we don't want to go that far, but you do want to do what we've learned from the best of the charters.
Okay.
The best of the charter schools, I could be really nasty and call them orphanages where the kids go home at night.
Twitch.
Right. But think of the best of them. Provide breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Okay.
They don't stop at 3 in the afternoon. They make certain the kid can blow off some steam and then does their homework in a supervised environment.
Okay.
And then the adult parent comes in anywhere from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock and takes the kid home. Now, here's what we do know. Kids from an unenriched households, meaning that when vacation time comes, the neighborhood may be too dangerous for them to go out in the streets and play, and they're locked up in their house and watch TV all day, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, if you're from an unenriched household, notice this is not black or white, because this is irrespective of race, and I do believe it probably happens in rural parts of the state where there are no alternatives. They forget up to 1/3 of what they were taught during the school year.
Okay.
So the couple things we learned is that the 180-day traditional school year built on the agricultural calendar has got to end. Now, unfortunately, I know the guy that runs Cedar Point, and he's going to kill me when he sees this.
Okay.
But the school semester should be either 11 or 13 weeks long with a 2 to 3 week break and work throughout the entire calendar year.
All right, let me ask you this then. All right, it was, I once told me, or I read somewhere, where we will not solve the problem of the poor until the rich figure out how to get richer from solving the problem of the poor. And in the United Kingdom, some of the local governments there have started developing social bonds.
Okay.
Which is where You know.
Oh, this is like what New York City's doing over the Rikers Island thing.
Yeah, so for the viewer out there, basically what happens is that rich people loan money to local governments who then do a very intense social program, like what you're talking about here with the after-school network stuff. And then as the savings accumulate in decreased jail time and all that other stuff and decreased drug use and all that stuff, that money gets placed to pay off the loans that the rich people have all given. Is this truly voodoo economics, or is this going to make some difference?
Borderline Ponzi to me.
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing. You're talking about what economists call an opportunity cost savings.
Okay.
So that if by not creating this cost, you're going to channel the money going in this direction.
All right.
Well, that is speculative and hard to account. It's not a real hard dollar saving.
I was wondering how you're going to track all this,
And,
but you know.
it sounds like a wonderful way of freeing up capital, but there's easier ways of freeing up the capital, which is just directly go and make the loan,
Okay.
place the bond, and it goes through the management. And don't call it a social equity bond. I mean, it's one of the newest fads by the foundations, and at the end of the day, you need to see real dollar cost savings before this stuff works.
Let me one last question, and this is, of course, has been wonderful. And I could just do the Ned Hill show, you know that, and just have you on, just do this week after week after week.
And your viewership will be in the high single digits.
Yeah, you have to offer free bourbon to get people to watch it eventually, but that's okay. I would enjoy doing these. Data. You mentioned a little bit here about tracking for social equity bonds. How do you track the data? Excuse me, data is becoming a larger and larger concern of state and local governments and the ability to manage it, big data. At the same time, Bobby and Betty Buckeye are becoming more afraid of data and the government's ability to know everything about you. How do you see, and as an economist, you live or die by data. You're a data economist. There are, you know, there's the, I call it the story economist, but you're a data economist. How do you see this whole data evolution, you know?
Well,
and Rifkin's come out with a new book now that's all about how in the future it'll be, you know, zero margins and stuff like that because of the data. But go ahead. Do you have any thoughts on where do you see the data universe going?
Right now, there's tons of confusion.
Okay.
Right? So there are First Amendment issues, freedom of speech.
Okay.
But there's also privacy issues and concerns.
Okay.
And there's issues about big government having too much information on us, holding the NSA harmless through all that.
Right.
But at the same time, Experian probably has more data on you than the government ever will.
Yeah.
And just think about something as simple as, my cell phone is in the other room, but you take a picture and it's tagged by where you took it.
Right.
You go into Target or Heinen's or anything else, and they've got massive data on what your consumption habits are.
Right.
I mean, the funny story, and it's actually a true story, was there's a father with a teenage daughter, and all of a sudden coupons started showing up for Pampers and other baby stuff, and he looked at his daughter and says, "Are you pregnant?" She says, "No." She came home crying the next week because it turned out that she was. And what it was is her changing in her eating habits triggered the stores to say the probability is that she's going to deliver soon.
Oh, my gosh.
All right, so the notion about, I happen to be in favor of a national ID.
Okay.
Because having our Department of Motor Vehicles do it is ridiculous. By the way, I carry a national ID with me at all times.
Really?
I have a U.S. government-issued national ID.
Really?
Right there. Hi, guys. This is a passport.
Oh, really? Now, you obviously got some much younger person to pose for you there.
No, this is the same fat guy. They just don't show the gut.
Okay.
But this is a passport that's good in Canada and in the Caribbean. U.S. government-issued ID with a smart chip.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's much easier than carrying my passport when I'm going to Canada.
Okay.
And it's with me at all times.
Interesting.
And why should this be any better?
Yeah.
No, it glares, right? So this is my state of Ohio issued driver's license, and that's essentially,
Yeah.
a Federalist ID.
Yeah.
So it doesn't bother me. So anyway, let's go back quickly to sum up, because
Okay.
you asked about the income inequality issue. It's here because of changes in the labor market.
Okay.
Two, it's here because of digitization and flexibility on the factory floor, but digitization breaking down barriers and consumers hating high margins.
Okay.
It means that education has to be delivered better. We have to get smarter. Doesn't mean everybody needs a BA.
Okay.
We have to be much more concerned about that technology workers are concerned about the fact that technology workers are knowledge workers, and make it happen so that our community colleges ramp up and do a much better job than they're doing. Other thing that we have to do is for kids that are non-enriched households, yeah, I do think that we are going to be going to pre-K, but you're also going to have to fundamentally change the school year.
Okay.
And as much as the folks at Cedar Point and Kings Island are going to hate it, the traditional summer vacation from the second or third week in June to the third or fourth week in August has got to go away.
Yeah.
And by the way, it means, again, my good friends in the state of Maine that depend on summer vacation to get through the year, they're going to be in it for a tough time. But it really means that we have to realize that school K through 12 should be done in 11 to 13 week blocks of time with 2 to 3 weeks off, and keep on cycling through the year. It'll make it a little tougher for our traditional way of having summer.
Yeah.
But I don't know of too many kids that pull corn tassels these days.
No, no. And I also am sitting here thinking, woe to the legislature who introduces the bill to move us off of that.
Well, in fact, I don't think you're going to need a bill. If you have enough choice in education, those schools that offer this to kids that are going to benefit from it
Okay.
will win.
Okay.
And by the way, I think you're also going to find that that school systems, when they start seeing the success and parents start, particularly when if you're two parents and they're both working, what's the biggest crisis that a responsible parent has? What the hell am I going to do with the kid during the summer?
Yeah.
So, no, I think that markets will help get us there with some aid from the legislature, essentially making the school day, I don't think 180 school days are enough. Singapore and Hong Kong does school 5.5 days a week. We're going to be up to around 190, 195 days. And you're going to see the traditional school day begin to change. And the other thing, you really want to change things? This won't happen. Essentially, take sports out of the schools and follow the European model and put them in a sports club.
Yeah.
So that way kids that go to multiple different schools can get together and do their sports as part of the club, as part of this wraparound.
Yeah. The single biggest impediment to school financial reform in Ohio is the high school mascot.
That will do it.
Yeah.
Well, one of the largest barriers between East Cleveland and Cleveland merging is what happens to the high school.
This has been Gene Krebs here on behalf of the Center for Community Solutions, and we're definitely high in Ohio.
For more about the Center for Community Solutions or their publications, please visit www.communitysolutions.com.